Bookish Bliss. Today, I will be going over my top 10 YA book recommendations ever. Yeah. These are not all of them pictured here. I have a few more on the side. These are just the ones that fit. These are personal preferences. This is not like the master list. This is just books that I personally think are the perfect YA books, whether you're looking to get into the genre, well, more like age range, whether you're looking to get into YA or or you are already well versed. I think these books are a must read if you would like to get into YA. And again, personal opinions. If you don't like them, you don't like them. But if you're having trouble on what to read next, I hope these can give you some sort of idea if you're looking for a YA book recommendation. Yeah. Before we start, I'd just like to say that this list is in no particular order. I'm going to sort the list by genre, so like fantasy, sci-fi, mystery, and romance. But other than that, it's not like ranked from number 1 to number 10. I love all these books for different reasons and some of the same reasons, and it is really hard for me to actually rank them, so I choose not to. Just keep that in mind when we're going through the list, and without further ado, let's get into it. The first genre we'll be going over, and my most frequent genre, is fantasy, and the first book that I have for fantasy is one that I think a lot of people have heard of, or at least in my experience, and sort of feels like something of a classic, but not really, if that makes sense. I'm talking about Shadow and Bone by Leah Bardugo. I'm always afraid that I mispronounce her name. This is actually a relatively new read for me, as in I finished the series like a week ago or something like that, but wow, was this series good. If you haven't heard of it, or you've heard of it and you don't know what it's about like I did, Shadow and Bone is about a girl who is just a cartographer in the army for this kingdom, and she learns something huge about herself that she didn't even know, and is swept away to the castle to potentially help her kingdom. The main character's name is Alina, and I don't know why I said her name, because I feel that it's important. Shadow and Bone, I loved it so much. I think the writing is really good, as you'll expect from a good book. Writing is a very key part. Characters were good. The setting was amazing. I love the world of the Grishaverse. I'm sorry, I completely forgot the name of the world, even though I just read it and loved it. But nonetheless, I think the setting is amazing, characters are amazing, and the plot is super interesting. I was completely hooked. I finished the series in like a week. I couldn't stop reading. And I think it's a really good YA book. I believe, I'm not sure if there's cursing. I know some people can't read that, so I'm trying to like give content warnings. I don't think there's any cursing. There's violence. It's not too explicit, the violence. And of course the romance is clean, as you'll expect from a YA book. And it's just an amazing book and series. After Shadow and Bone, the next, I don't know if they're technically the next books that you're supposed to read in the Grishaverse, but I'm going to read Six of Crows next. I haven't yet, but I'm going to get the book loaned to me, because I don't own it yet. But it's basically like a prequel, and it's the one that everyone talks about more, I feel, than Shadow and Bone. So I feel like if this series is like as good as I thought, then Six of Crows must be amazing. Anyways, if you're looking to like get into fantasy, specifically YA fantasy, I think Shadow and Bone is perfect. It's an amazing fantasy world, and it still has aspects of our human life, just less developed, and I always think that's so interesting. Like, they have guns and machinery like that, but they also have this otherworldly magic system and this otherworldly setting, and I always find that that's such an interesting premise, and like such an amazing way to frame a book if it's done well, and Shadow and Bone does it very well. Yeah, so if you're looking to like dip your toe into fantasy, or like me, you're just looking for another amazing fantasy when you don't know what to read, Shadow and Bone is the book to do it. Yeah, Shadow and Bone. Next up in the fantasy category, a book that I think is a little more well known, at least on Book Talk nowadays, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. If you're on Book Talk, you've probably heard of this book. The Cruel Prince, it follows Jude, a human mortal, in a world of fairies. Fae. I always forget. Fae, fairy. There's too many Fae books, honestly. But she's in the world of Fae, with different magical creatures, and these creatures are not the nice fairy tales that you would expect. No, they are. This world is vicious. This world is cruel. And it has a cool prince, obviously. I really just said that. Jude basically wants to be a knight, but her adoptive dad, who, let's just say, played a part in her childhood trauma, without spoiling much, basically will not let her be a knight, and it sort of spirals from there into a much bigger story, but that's the very, very basic, like, that's how the story starts. I think this book is so interesting because, again, the setting is the best part. I am in love with all the characters except for the ones that I'm supposed to hate, which I hate with all of my heart, which is the point. And the plot is also really good, but the setting is amazing. I love the setting because it's the Fae world, but like a weird vegetative horse frog right away, I always forget what they're called, is the human world. The literally modern human world with Target and pizza and apartments. Like, this normal world is on the way to this place. Like, again, so interesting. I think there are a few fantastical realms that are rooted in the human world, but I've never seen it like this. The main example I can think of is Keeper of the Lost Cities, which is a more middle grade series, but it's also switches between their world and the human world, their world being the fantasy world, but it's more ingrained and more interchangeable, I feel like, in that series. While in this series, there's this divide where it's like, oh, you can go over there at any time, but when you're in fairyland, you forget that the human world exists. It's so encompassing and emerging. That's not the right word. Immersive. And honestly, amazing. It's another trilogy. If I forgot to say, Shadow and Bone is a trilogy. The Cruel Prince is a trilogy, plus it has a novella and a spin-off series called The Stolen Heir. And I don't know what else to say. The Cruel Prince is amazing. Sorry. The main character is Jude. She's our human main character. In regards to POVs, because I know some people have, like, preferences for POVs. It is third person. I am unsure of the tense. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm sorry, I was completely wrong. This is not third person. This is first person present tense. which I'm not a fan of it. You know, there are some POVs that I hate, but first person present better than third person present. Anyways, yeah, so that's just like a brief overview of The Cruel Prince. Again, a very popular book talk book, I feel, but I think it's completely worth the hype. In regards to swearing, I think it is, if I can remember, minimal. Violence, it's violent. I cannot remember how much exactly. I'm so sorry. It's been a while since I've read this book, but it's not overdone. It's still clean, has some insinuations, but that's basically every book that is not a kid's book ever at this point, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. This book is amazing. The love interest, Carden. I mean, it's pretty obvious that he is, but we all love him so much. And it's, oh, I forgot to say this. This is a true enemies to lovers. You know those enemies to lovers? I'm gonna say something about one of my favorite books, Powerless, who is on this list. Marketed, I feel, as an enemies to lovers, when really only one of them knows they're enemies and pretends like they're not. If you know what I mean, if you've read Powerless. But this is true enemies, like they are enemies. And it's enemies to lovers. And it was so refreshing because it was true, real enemies to lovers, and it's hard to find real enemies to lovers anymore. So that was really nice. I love that. Other than that, yeah, that is basically Cruel Prince. I think The Cruel Prince is awesome. I don't know if it's the best book to really start you in fantasy. I think you have to know fantasy at least a little, just with all the stuff with the Fae versus mortals and like the Fae courts. I think it can be hard to grasp, but I think if you're new to fantasy and you keep up and you attempt to keep up, you will be able to. Yeah, so another amazing book, The Cruel Prince. Next up, we actually have two books here, Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I've included both here because they're in the same universe, and I love them both, and I feel like they're so interwoven that they can be together like this. So Caraval follows Scarlet, I forgot her last name, Scarlet, and then the second book follows Tella, her sister, and the third book is a dual POV. And then Once Upon a Broken Heart follows Evangeline Fox throughout the whole series. Both are third person, I believe, past. And both are amazing. Sorry, Once Upon a Broken Heart dropped. Personally, I liked Once Upon a Broken Heart better. Which you have to read Caraval before you read Once Upon a Broken Heart. In theory, you could read Once Upon a Broken Heart first, but I think Caraval gives so much background knowledge, and it happens in the universe before Once Upon a Broken Heart. So it also just gives so much background information. I feel like if you're going to read these books, you should read Caraval first. Once Upon a Broken Heart is definitely talked about more and hyped up more, but Caraval is still amazing. Basically, Scarlet and Tella run away from their abusive father, and they go to this mystical, not wild, but like fantastical, magical place, this game called Caraval, and it's always following a task, and Caraval was really good. I think it was so immersive, like the you're never gonna be able to guess what happens. Like, I'm sorry, you will not. Like, the plot twists were very plot twisty. I think they were planned out really well, and I was very surprised. I could have never guessed basically all of them. They were crazy. They were so crazy. And it's another trilogy. I read a lot of trilogies, if you can't tell. And it's amazing. Honestly, so amazing. And then moving on, we have Once Upon a Broken Heart, which again, my personal favorite out of the two series. It's another trilogy, and again, it follows Evangeline Fox as the boy that she loves is marrying her stepsister, and she sort of tries to stop it. It's hard to explain, and it actually follows her and a character from Caraval, who, let's be honest, he's everyone's favorite. I knew who he was before I read the series because I've seen stuff on like Pinterest and YouTube, but it still worked. It was still like surprising. And I think Once Upon a Broken Heart is more of a romantasy than Caraval. Like, it is focused a little more on the romance, but we still have an amazing plot. As Evangeline goes to this other part of the continent country, and she learns. I'm sorry, I'm not great at explaining books, but Evangeline, such a sweetheart, such cutie patootie, so grumpy. Evangeline is my baby. If you hurt her, you're dead. By multiple people, like so many people in the fandom, obviously. Again, it starts basically right after Caraval. I'm trying to think what it's like. It's after Caraval, right after Caraval, and of course you get cameos from characters from the book, and of course one of the main characters in Once Upon a Broken Heart is one of these sort of more prominent side characters in Caraval, and it's fun to get to see so much more of his story and so much more about him because everyone loves him. Everyone. It's so mystical and magical and whimsical. I think whimsical is the best word for it, and it is amazing. Once Upon a Broken Heart is amazing. I've been yapping about these two for probably a bit, but yeah. So the Stephanie Garberverse, as I've begun to call it, one of my honestly faves. She's like a top 5 author for me because of these 2 books. These are her only works, but they are amazing, and I think you need to pay attention in Caraval because there's a lot going on, and even me, and I was paying attention, don't worry, like, I was confused at some points, and then it gets tied together, and you're like, oh, okay, I understand now. You just kind of have to trust the process, and trust that if you pay attention, you'll understand later. But even if you have trouble getting through it, so don't worry, it is so worth it because it's amazing. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Both are trilogies, and whatever. Yeah, I don't know anything else. So, Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart, amazing. Now let's move on to a few what I would call more underrated books, but they deserve so much more hype. First, Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I'd like to start off by saying I know Marissa Meyer has quite a big fandom, and a lot of people like her work. If you've read one of her books, you've probably read most of them, like me. But however well known she is, she needs more. Because Marissa Meyer, when I tell you that I cannot stop reading her books, I cannot stop reading her books. Like, they're all very different, but they are all still amazing, and she still writes them extraordinarily. Like, Marissa Meyer's talent boggles my brain, okay? So let's get on to the actual book. Renegades. It has two main characters. It's dual POV between Nova Artino, I don't know, and Adrian Everhart. Nova is a part of this group called the Anarchists, for a tragic event in her childhood. And she wants to infiltrate this guild of heroes, and who also happen to run the government, actually, called the Renegades. And would you look at that? Adrian Everhart seems to be a renegade, and not any renegade. He is the adopted son of the basically leader of the renegades. His dad is Captain Chromium, and his other dad is... I always forget Simon's power, but I know his name is Simon. Basically, they're both they both have great abilities, and Captain Chromium leads the Renegades. So basically, Nova infiltrates the Renegades. She becomes a part of them, and she's trying to take them down from the inside while helping the Anarchists do it. That's basically the synopsis of the book. Wow, Renegades. I don't even know. Amazing. It's superheroes, right? It's a superhero book. And when's the last time you read a book about superheroes? Yeah, that's what I thought. That was the Jeopardy music. You heard me right. No, but I'd never read a book about superheroes before, and I wasn't sure about it at the beginning, because I feel like with a lot of Marissa Meyer's books, they can start out like you're not sure about them at the beginning, but they'll get good fast. You won't even realize it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm enveloped, I'm absorbed, I'm obsessed, and you're just there for eternity. I don't even know. This is another trilogy. The books are actually they're pretty thick. If we just take a look back here, you can see that this book alone, the first book, is 500 pages, over 500 pages. So it's a thick series, but if you're into reading, come and read it. Because it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm having trouble formulating words at the moment, but Renegades is amazing. I think you should not read this if you are trying to get into... At this point, I don't even know if this is fantasy, because I've always had kind of a mixed feelings on whether superheroes are fantastical or if they're their kind of own genre, like sci-fi. Are they more sci-fi than they are fantasy, But we'll leave that gray area gray. We won't even touch that. We're going to call it fantasy for right now. And if you're looking to get into fantasy or really just into YA, I think this is good as long as you can commit to a longer series. Like, a few of the books on this list, at least the first ones, are pretty short, and most, like Renegades, are much longer. And so if you are, if you're not necessarily a new reader, but you're trying to get into YA, and you're good with 500, 600 pages of books, pages of reading, then you need to read Renegades, because I think it's so worth it. If you are looking to get into YA, I definitely recommend Renegades. Really, whatever genre you like reading, I think you're gonna like this. Again, as long as you can commit to how long it is, you are good. You're gonna love this series. Yeah. Renegades, one of my personal favorites. I love Renegades. Alright, here is, honestly, this book is so underrated. It's crazy. I've barely seen anything for it. But, oh my gosh. Legend Board by Tracy Deal. First of all, have you ever heard of this book? Have you, truly? Because I'm not even sure how I found it, but it wasn't Book Talk, and it wasn't a recommendation from a booktuber. It was just kind of on a list or something. And I think that's crazy. I think, and maybe I'm just not on enough of Book Talk /booktube, which is what I have. But how is Legendborn not bigger? Bewilderment. It's going to be a tetralogy, which I learned this word when I actually read this series. When I looked online how long it was going to be, it said a tetralogy, and that means 4 books, if you didn't know that like me. It's going to be a tetralogy. Right now there are 2 books, Legendborn and Bloodmarked, which I don't own. The 3rd book coming out, I think it is March, maybe April, but I think it's March, is called Oathbound, and Bloodmarked left off on such a big cliffhanger. I'm so excited to read it. I'm going to buy Bloodmarked soon so that I can buy Oathbound, because I'm really excited, even though it's been like a year since I first read this. Like, I read it in January, February of 2024. That's crazy to say, actually. Okay, on to the book. Legendborn follows Bree. I forgot her last name. Again, been a while. Her mom didn't just die, but she died like sort of recently. And she's in college, and well, stuff happens that sort of pulls her into this world, this not world, but this secret like society of people, and this secret like place of you guessed it, magic and fantasy. And it's awesome. This book is actually based on Arthurian legend. If you don't know what Arthurian legend is, like literally everyone I've talked to when I try to convince them to read this book, it's the legend of King Arthur's, you know, with Excalibur when he pulled it out, and the Round Table of 13 Knights. But it's like a modern, and it's not a retelling, it's based on the legends. And oh my gosh, there's so much I want to say, but it's all spoilers, so I can't. Anyways, Legendborn is amazing. Dying for the 3rd book. If you are into, like, let's say you read Percy Jackson and you loved it, this is sort of the same thing where it's based on that legend. It's not as in-depth as Percy Jackson, but still just being based on legends, and not only that, an insanely awesome legend. Like, after this book got me hooked on, like, Arthurian legend, like, I'm so interested now. Like, I'm into Greek mythology, and now I'm into Arthurian legend. I don't think it's technically mythology, I think it's legend, but yeah. I'm like bouncing up and down on the balls of my feet because this book is amazing. So underrated, like, actually, that I know of. There's no swearing that I know of, and there's violence, but it's a fantasy book. What are you gonna expect from fantasy at this point? Yeah, so please read Legendborn. If you're gonna read any of these books, read Legendborn, please, because it's amazing. Yeah, Legendborn. So underrated. You're probably thinking, wow, there's this one YA fantasy book that everybody knows that isn't on this list. What? Well, here it is. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Yeah, you thought I wasn't going to put it on there, did you? Powerless follows Peyton and Ordinary, basically a person who has no powers. And Peyton Gray, an Ordinary who has no powers and is also a thief. And Kai Azar. Some people say Azar, I think, but I say Azar. An elite, aka a person who has powers, and elites have really good powers, who is a prince, Prince Kai, royalty. And he also happens to be the future enforcer, the guy who, when he's old enough, they're like 17 right now, when he's old enough, he will be the person who enforces the king's rules. One of the king's rules: kill all ordinaries. All ordinaries right now are either in hiding or in another city. It's like more kingdom. But no, most of them are in hiding. And guess what? Pei, sort of in hiding, but she is hiding in plain sight as a psychic. Her dad just taught her to look at things around her and be observant to prove that she's psychic even when she's not. So, like, she knows things about people just by looking at them rather than having the psychic ability. And it's crazy. It's so crazy. And it's a romantasy, you know? So, if you haven't guessed, since it's a dual POV between Peyton and Kai, the prince and the ordinary, and it's marketed as basically anime syllabus, if you know what I mean. You know? I'm sorry, you can't tell, but I am just, driving, bouncing around, because I love Powerless. I am a nerd, I know. Powerless is amazing. It has 2 books right now, plus a novella, Powerful. I was just wondering where my Powerful book is, but it's loaned out to a friend. And there's going to be a 3rd book in April called Fearless. The 2nd book is called Reckless. The 1.5 novella is called Powerful. What else to say? Main character, love her. One of my favorite FMCs. Main guy character, Kai, love him. One of my favorite book boyfriends. I have a picture of him. It's not in the picture frame right now, but I do have a picture of him. Give me a second. Are you ready? That's Kai. Sorry about the thing under. That's the picture behind it. But this is Kai. He's amazing. Let's just put Kai right here for the rest of the video. We love him. Yeah. That's the main guy. Anyways. Powerless is amazing. If you haven't heard of this, then either you're on book... No. You're living under a rock. You're not on Book Talk. You're living under a rock. If you haven't heard of Powerless. It blew up because the writer, she did TikToks about her writing it, and then when it came out, it was this whole big thing, and everyone loved it. Of course, there's always the people who are like, it's so overhyped, I hate it, but, you don't need to ruin my experience of the book. I loved it, personally. Again, opinions, everyone has their own opinion, just saying. If you're... First of all, did I say this was a sort of romantasy? It's definitely more geared towards the romance than some other books, but it still has plot. It's just more romance, and it's cute. Don't worry, it's cute. If you're looking to get into, I think this is a good beginner's guide to fantasy. It's a new world, new setting. New magic system. Anyways, if you're new to YA fantasy, yeah, you should read Powerless, because again, even if you aren't on Book Talk, there is still a chance you've heard of Powerless. And again, if you haven't, maybe you live under the ocean. I don't know, wherever you live, it ain't on Earth or on land. Yeah, Powerless is amazing. I cannot physically wait 1 second longer for the 3rd book. Let's just say. If you know, you know. Because we're not sure how Fearless is going to end, and that's scary. Basically, read Powerless. If you're going to read a few books, read Legendborn, and then read Powerless. Because, from what I've seen of Powerless, it's either going to be your new favorite, or you're going to rant on about how it's way too overrated. Most likely the first one, like me. Or I rant on about how much I love it. Like I'm basically doing right now. Anyways, sorry, I'm a yapper. That's Powerless. Sorry, my camera completely fell down, so I'm sorry if it looks weird. But and yes, Kai is staying. Okay, he's watching over us. With his beautiful gray eyes. Yes, Kai. Anyways, next book is really a sci-fi. It still has magic, but it's more sci-fi than anything, I'd say. Another Marissa Meyer book. Cinder. Cinder is how I got into the Marissa Meyerverse. Oh my gosh. Some paperbacks. Y'all, you know. If you only buy paperbacks like me, you know about them falling over. Well, if you're not a booktuber, you might not, but... Cinder, my actually friend who was sort of my friend when she recommended this, and then we sort of became friends based off of books. Anyways, hi. If you're watching this, which you probably are, since now you watch my channel apparently, which totally isn't weird for me. Yeah, so there's your shout out. Anyways, Cinder is so good. It follows, it's a retelling. It's not based off of something. It's not like it's a futuristic retelling of some very classic princess fairy tales. So let's take the title, Cinder. Can you guess who it's based on? Cinderella. Cinder is based off Cinderella. Also, she's a cyborg, FYI, if you can't tell from the middle leg and middle hand. She is a cyborg. Cinder is a cyborg mechanic. In this world, cyborgs are very frowned upon. They're treated like outcasts. They are actually experimented on in these like trials that are apparently legal, which I can't say that. Spoilers. But basically, Cinder's a mechanic, and she meets a handsome prince also named Kai. They're both princes too. Anyways, I'm sorry. Mechanic, and she lived with, who do you think she lives with? Her stepmother and her stepsisters, one of which is actually very nice. Peony. I always say peony, but that always sounds wrong. I think it's peony, but anyways. Basically follows Cinder as a cyborg mechanic as stuff unravels, and it gets a lot bigger. I don't really know what to say. It's been so long. It's been like since December 2023. So, it's been like a year, and the characters in this are really good. I like them. I don't really know how to explain the plot without giving it away, so I'm just going to say she's a cyborg and she's a mechanic, and she finds something out, sort of, and stuff unravels. But Cinder's amazing. I love Marissa Meyer's writing. She can really pull you in. There are 4 main books. There is one prequel about the villain, actually, and one set of little novellas that is one epilogue. No, it happens after the main story, and a bunch of prequel novellas about a lot of characters. A refreshing thing about this book, and about actually all of Marissa Meyer's books, no love triangle at all. None to be seen at all. Makes me smile. It's, in my opinion, it's pretty clear cut who gets together from the beginning. But, maybe you think it's going to be someone else and it's not. But personally, I knew who everyone was going to get with basically immediately once we met them. But Cinder's really good. I really don't have much to say besides read it, because Cinder was the first book I read by Marissa Meyer, and that sort of spiked my Marissa Meyer kick. I read the whole Lunar Chronicles series, that's what the series is called, and then I read Renegades, and then I read Heartless, and then I just started Gilded, but I had to DNF because I was getting into reading, so I'm going to have to try again later. It's another retelling, but yeah. So Cinder, you should really read it. Personally, I'd say read it before Renegades, but of course, that's just the order that I read it. That's why I say that. But I still think you should. Yeah. Cinder. Okay, moving on to a completely different genre. And this is a romance book, the only romance book on this thing, because I'm trying to get more into YA romance, and this was the first one that I read. Not the first one, but one of the first ones. It's really good. You've probably heard of it. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Liz hates her next door neighbor, Wes Bennett. He pulls pranks on her, and he's known her for so long. And this guy that she used to have a major crush on named Michael moves back into town after like a bunch of years. And Wes and Michael are friends, and they're hanging out and chatting. And Liz wants to get with Michael. So she asks Wes, hey, let's pretend to date so that I can date Michael. Since you're close to him, you can be my in. And of course that sparks this whole thing. And yeah, this is a duology. I'm going to say, despite it being on this list, I still have yet to read the second book. And I'm probably not going to read it because I think this book should have ended on this book. I don't think it should have been a series, but that's not what we're talking about right now. It's so cute. It's so cute. Like this. I love this cover. I think the little cartoons are so cute. My friend who just read the book said that she thinks these are from romantic comedy movies. Also, Brenda Jones, Sally Thompson, everyone. I don't watch rom-coms, so I don't know if any of these scenes are actually from a rom-com movie, but whatever. if you're looking to get into YA romance, this is it. There's definitely cursing. It is clean, nothing too bad, I don't think. This book was amazing. For one of my first true YA romances, I was gonna say very glad, but I love it so much. Definitely one of my faves, even though I'm probably not gonna read the second book. Anyways, I really do think you should read it if you like romance, or if you're trying to get into romance like me. If you are anything but a romance reader and you want to read a romance, you should read this one to like start you. Am I the most qualified person to say that, considering this is one of 3 or 4 romances, maybe 5 that I've read ever? Probably not, but I said this was personal opinions, and it is, so yeah, we love better than the movies. I definitely want to read more of Lynn Painter's books. I just have to get them and actually read them. Yeah, better than the movies, so cute. Alright, we are down to our final 2 books, both mystery, and actually both by the same author, but they are separate. First, The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The Inheritance Games follows Avery Kylie Grams. Yes, the middle name is necessary, you'll see in the book. Avery Kylie Grams is in this like boring town, and then this billionaire guy dies, right? He dies, and his grandsons, one of his grandsons comes and brings her to this mansion, and because she was named in this billionaire's will, and keep in mind she's never met this billionaire, and basically these 4 grandsons who were supposed to get, you know, money and land, but mostly money. You know what Avery gets? I have to say this with dramatic effect. Absolutely everything. She gets everything. Besides like a few insignificant trinkets, but you know, whatever. And this guy was really one for riddles. So, you know, he leaves them a bunch of really complicated riddles that I could never solve. Her and the 4 grandsons get to solve them. The Inheritance Games is very fun. Pretty lighthearted, I'd say. You know, there's the riddles and the mysteries, and she and the brothers have to solve everything. Anyways, The Inheritance Games is great. It's really good. There's so many little, like, details that come in, like, later on. So many details that you would think are so insignificant. And they're not. They're really, really not. Yeah. I really can't say much more. I'm so afraid of spoiling this book because there's so much that happens. Anyways, if you want mystery, you should read it. I think there's a little swearing. Maybe? Maybe not. I would look that up. I don't remember. Other than that, violence is minimal. Yes, The Inheritance Games is amazing. Jennifer Lynn Barnes is a great author, and I really liked it. So if you want to get into a YA mystery that's not a murder mystery. This is not a murder mystery. I have a murder mystery coming up. This is not a murder mystery. This is a regular mystery with riddles and whatever. And it's really good. So if you want a mystery, not murder, Inheritance Games got you. So yeah, our final book, again, this is another mystery, also by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and it's a murder mystery. The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, as I said. Wow, The Naturals. Okay, basically, it follows Cassie, this orphan. I forgot if she was an orphan person. She's not an orphan, but her dad's in the army, so she lives with her grandparents and family. And basically, she is a profiler, but a natural one. So, like, you know how there are people in the FBI who are like, they're called profilers, and they're profilers, and they are trained to notice patterns in people and know about a person just by looking at them or hearing or reading about the bare minimum of them. You like know them and you know about them and you can get in their head, and it's really helpful for like the FBI for finding serial killers and doing that. Cassie does that naturally. She like can profile people, like she has this natural ability, and it was also like taught to her by her mother in her early years, and that grew into this like amazing ability that almost seems like a power. It's not. Don't worry, it's not magical or like abilities or whatever, superheroes. It's just an ability that she has. And she learns that there are, she's like a teenager, 17, 16, whatever. She learns that there are these other kids who are also naturals. You see what I did there? I'm sorry, I'm so cringy. One can spot lies and can also tell them perfectly, but more of her ability is spotting lies. Like, she knows when a person is lying. She knows immediately if a person is lying. One ability is reading people's emotions. He's kind of like an empath for Keep It Lessons if you've read it, except it's a natural ability. It's not like an ability. He's an empath, but not an empath. It's not called an empath. And he, just from people's face, he can tell the exact emotions that they are feeling. The exact ones. And then another girl is just smart. She is like uber smart at math. Like, she's really good at math. And she has a photographic memory. And she's basically the statistics girl. Like, she's got everything that needs smarts. She got it. She knows all about geography and math and science and literally everything ever, basically. And she's my favorite character. I love her so much. And then finally we have, I'm trying not to say names. Final guy. He is also a natural profiler, except he has a little more trauma in his past, but we won't get into that. But yeah, he's also a natural profiler, like Cassie, of course. He doesn't like her in the beginning, but again, of course, he warms up to her. And they are the naturals, and they are trying to catch serial killers, although they start out with cold cases. And I love them. The naturals are so cool. It definitely has darker themes. It also switches between all 4 books switch between the eyes of a different serial killer. But you don't know who they are. The POV is called you, so it's actually second person. Weird, right? But, and you is basically, it shows them murdering someone or, like, their thoughts or kidnapping someone. So, it can get dark. If you can't handle that, don't read the series. There's a lot of violence. There's violence, and I think there's gore, a little. And are there curse words? Is there swearing? I'm not sure. It is clean though, not in swearing, but it's clean. And I don't think they're swearing, but please fact check me again. But anyways, darker themes, literally serial killers. And serial killers are kidnappers. They do bad stuff. So, be aware of that, and definitely, read, trigger warnings for violence and abuse and stuff like that. But if you're good with that, it's such a good series. I binged this series because I loved it so much, and I was on break, so, why not? It's so good. It really hooks you. My personal favorite was the 3rd book, All In, where we learned more about my favorite character. The last book on my top 10 YA books that I think you should read. It is a really good series, and I really recommend it. Out of it and the Inherent Games, I think I like the Naturals better. Honestly, yeah. It was a bit more advanced, and I like that. But anyways, my mind's kind of blanking on what else to say, so that's basically it. That's the Naturals. Alright, besides the few books that I have in the back behind these books, these are all of the books on my list. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got at least one good recommendation for a YA book that you'd like to read. Again, these are my, basically all-time favorite books. I'm an avid YA reader. Again, mostly YA fantasy, but I will dabble in others. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, because they really help my channel, and I can, do my recommendation videos or something. I don't know. And yeah, I hope this helped you. And I hope you have an amazing day, amazing week, amazing month, year, life, whatever. Amazing everything. And especially, I hope you have very happy reading.